Welcome to the Men After God podcast, where you will be challenged and encouraged as you pursue God, achieve success, and raise a thriving family. Join your host, Dustin, and his guests on a weekly journey to grow as husbands, fathers, and men after God. Here is your host, Dustin Alley.
All right, guys, welcome. So glad to have you here on the Men After God podcast. Looking forward to today because today's topic is more needed in your life and my life than I think we realize. The neglect of what we're talking about today will cause issues in your family, will cause issues at work, in any relationships you have if you're not observing it properly. Well, we're going to give a shout out to some more of our founding members, Greg. You know, I've been giving shout outs. Why don't you get some shout outs?
Well, I don't know where we're shouting out.
Right there. That's your boy.
All right.
That's your boy.
Am I shouting out all three of these?
Yeah, the top
people?
three.
Okay.
Top three.
Hey, you're the top three.
The three most recent.
So, all right. Well, shout out to Mike Jones. Thank you for being a part of this shindig here.
And if you don't know Mike Jones, it is the Mike Jones you're thinking of, just so we're clear.
There you go. And then a shout out to Matt Miles.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man.
Matt, I feel like you come straight from the comics because you know how like everybody in the Marvel universe, their names start with the same letter, both first and last?
Yes, right.
So Matt Miles.
Peter Parker.
You're probably a version of Miles
Morales.
I'm chasing rabbits. All right. And then shout out to Daniel Bishop.
Yeah, buddy.
Thank you for being a patron saint of the Men After God pod. You know what? You shouldn't have handed this to me, Dustin. I just butchered the whole thing. And I'm sorry that you guys didn't get a proper shout out.
That's awesome. You know what we should do? Maybe that's what we should call them. They're our patron saints. That's it, our patron saints. I don't know if that'll stick or not, but we're going to go with it for now because it's funny and I'm thankful for it. Well, guys, we are glad that you're subscribed to the podcast. Hey, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, we want you to connect with us, facebook.com/Men After God podcast. You can follow us on there, see updates, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Men After God, or it's youtube.com/@Men After God 316. Wait, Men After God was already taken. Men After God podcast was taken. I had to figure something out. So John 316 came to mind, and that's how we got there.
That wasn't Steve Austin 316, or was that the right guy?
Yeah, that's the right guy. That's definitely the right guy. Okay. And some glass shattering is a sound effect we need on this podcast. But that we'll get that one day. So follow us on there. Check it out. If you want to join our Facebook community, facebook.com/group/Men After God. We were able to secure that one. And so we're glad to have that community there of guys connecting and just, we're sharing life together, asking advice, talking about not just the podcast, but just different things going on. And we want to be here for you to help you achieve success with a thriving faith and family. Maybe you're a businessman. Maybe you're out working a 9-to-5 job. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. You're in the corporate world, whatever your role is in work or whatever it is you're pursuing, an athlete. Whatever your goals are, we want to help you achieve that success with a thriving faith and family. Because if you achieve success and lose your faith and family, you've really succeeded at failing at the most important things in life. And so that's why this podcast exists. And that's why today's topic is so important. Today's topic, we're talking about doing nothing for Jesus.
And so for the remainder of this podcast, we're going to listen to white noise.
Okay, no, we actually have to talk about this. But no, so we're doing nothing for Jesus. But where does that come from? Aren't we supposed to be doing things for Jesus, living our lives for Christ and glorifying Him? Yes, absolutely. However, there is a way to glorify Him by doing nothing. Mark chapter 2, verse 27, the Bible says, "Then Jesus said to them," this is out of the NLT, by the way, "The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath." Verse 28, "So the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath." We were talking about this before we got on, just what a great rendering of that verse, and it's proper, it's correct. But to help us understand this principle that gets so often overlooked, and that is that when it comes to the Sabbath, God gave us Sabbath rest to meet our needs because we need it. Man, in our world today, more so than ever, because we're on constantly. connected somehow, always doing something. I'm talking to myself, guys, and Craig knows that. Like, he's looking at me like, "Are you just the pot calling the kettle black?" Right? Come on, tell me more. But we're always on. We're always doing something. I think you've heard me making a joke on a podcast recently where I said I like to rest, but I like to find something to do productive while I'm resting, and and that happens. And I know that about me, and so I do have to be intentional about finding times to rest because I need it, and not just sleep. How many hours a night do you sleep?
At best, 7.
7, yeah, that's good. 6 to 8 hours is really what's recommended out there. A number of people that I've read, and one group that we'll be highlighting here soon, SoulCon, Gaborum Studios. You can look them up, but it's recommended 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Those guys are great. But getting that 6 to 8 hours of sleep, I think we make the excuse sometimes, especially if you've got a side hustle, if you're hustling and grinding, if you're trying to get work done, you're working on your business, or you're just going through life and you're trying to complete tasks and get all this stuff knocked out. You'll stay up real late, wake up real early, and find yourself think you're going to be successful. Now, look, I understand there's times where we sacrifice sleep and we got to get some stuff done, but that should not be an everyday occurrence. That shouldn't be for long periods of time. We should be striving for that 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night on top of good rest and sleep like that. We've also got to talk about what it means to rest when we're not sleeping without feeling guilty.
Right.
Now do you battle that?
I do not.
No?
Because,
okay.
And I don't know where I learned it.
Yeah.
It wasn't original with me. I'm sure I was taught it at some point, but I definitely know that I need rest to be profitable to any degree. And so I do not feel bad about the time that I take to rest.
Yeah. I battle. Look, that's where the finding something to do productive comes from, is because I'm sitting there thinking like I could be doing so much more right now than laying here and existing. So after I hit my wall this last year, and I met with my spiritual mentor, and he gave me the homework of taking naps, resting, and he wanted to hear about those. I told him, I said, "You just gave me the hardest homework I've ever been given." And I remember one day, I think it was January, I was on my couch. This was like middle of the afternoon, and I was going to take a nap. And like me, myself, and I, all three of us were having a conversation in my head about, I need to lay here and rest, but I've got other things I need to do. You're lazy. No, you can get up. No, this is proper. This is what you should be doing. You have to do this. So like I'm arguing myself and guilting myself into not going to sleep, but then I fell asleep. And then I woke up, felt guilty about falling. I mean, it was a nightmare. However, what I've learned since then is the importance of that rest and being profitable to people, like Craig mentioned, for me to be there for my family the way they need me, for me to be there for others in the church and just in my life in any way. I've got to get that rest, and that rest of laying there and just doing nothing. And man, that's hard, because we often occupy ourselves with the phone or something, but to set that to the side, and like I will have a TV on, I'm not just laying there staring at the stars or my ceiling fan, but just turning my mind off and resting for a minute. It's very important for us to be able to get that. And you can get soul rest by doing nothing, which is good, or some refreshing activities, things that give you energy, things that just help you to, again, feel refreshed when you're finished with them. And so, you picked up disc golf recently. I don't know if this is going to become a thing for you.
I don't know. It might. Somebody bought me a bag to hold my discs, and now I feel like I'm a pro. So,
and he's discovered how to throw it left and right. Yes. We're still working on getting it straight, though.
Correct.
That one is that's the next step.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. But we played disc golf. That was fun. It was a fun time. I really enjoyed that. I've played golf before, and that's fun to an extent because you hit so many bad shots, but when you get that one shot, that's good. That's awesome. That makes it all worth it, because then you're the next Tiger Woods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That one shot's all it takes. But finding those things to do. Maybe you like to run. Dave. This guy Dave in our church, he's a marathoner, man. And he was just talking. He's down in Peru right now, and he's hiking at like 11,000 feet with his kid, and he said they were having to stop and like heavy breathing and their heart pounding out of their chest. And I'm thinking, this guy runs 26.2 miles for fun often. I would die if I was in this situation, but he runs, and it's fun for him. It's refreshing, and that gives him life, and he loves doing that. And so maybe you're a person out there that does that. Make time for these things. Don't just make time for the grind, the side hustle, or whatever it is you're doing, trying to achieve the success. You've got to make time for rest, and you got to talk to your family about making time for rest. Man, this principle I am working at instilling in my kids so they don't become like me in this area. Um, but there's times I tell my kids, get off the electronic. And the question is always, well, why? Because I want you to rest. Because you've been to school all day, you've been to sports all day, and now you've had like half a dinner, and you think you're going to get on here. No, you're just going to rest. And they're not that happy with me about it, but they need that, and they need to be told, like, no, just put it away for a bit. We started a new rule at our house: 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, they cannot be on any electronics.
Right.
I know we have time limits too, but that rest is so important, and getting it any way you can. And when we understand rest in this biblical manner, the sabbatical rest that Jesus is talking about, I believe it can change our willingness to rest, because this is what impacted me. Now, I'm not perfect at this, but this is what impacted me was when I began to see my rest as a recognition of who God is and what God has done in my life. It is a Sabbath. Now again, we believe salvation by grace through faith. We're not underneath the law. We are under grace. However, the principle of the Sabbath and the rest that is there, we acknowledge because God can do more with me working 6 days than me working 7 days. Because when I work 7 days, I'm usually doing it for myself, trying to go further, faster in such a way that's unhealthy for me and my family. And I'm going to miss out on the important things God has called me to give my attention to. However, when I work 6 days and I rest on that seventh, I'm telling God, I'm offering my work to you as worship, which is what it should be. I offer my family to you. I offer my life to you. And you've said you'll take 6 days and do with it, and then I'll rest on the seventh. Now, Craig, I battle this one, so I want to bring in this conversation. I don't know if you battle this, but again, the achievement, the wanting to go further, faster, and all those things, like that's a personal struggle of mine that I have to pray for my own ambition and drive to be submitted to God. And we can often think that if I just work more, if I'll just do more, we can achieve this, that, or the other. But when in reality, and I can't recall the verse off the top of my head right now, but it's the Bible speaks about how we are to allow God to elevate us and put us into either positions or into places of life. And it's us saying, God, I'm going to work as worship, and I'm going to let you handle the results. And that one is one that I have to struggle with. And maybe you do too. I've compared rest to tithing and giving. And that's what helps me in my understanding of it. And so, like I said, again, we give 10% to the Lord, saying, I'll live better off 90% because I'm being obedient to you and being faithful to you than I would off the 100%. Now, that's been true in my life when it comes to money. I've never heard anyone tell me, and maybe you have, like, man, I wish I'd never tithed. I wish I'd never given that 10% up. They may say something like, I wish I'd never given that to a pastor because he misused it. Right. I wish I'd never given to that church because they weren't doing what I thought they should. But I've never heard anyone say, I wish I'd never started tithing or been doing that. Well, the same is going to happen when you begin to rest and rest well. I've never heard someone say they're upset that they started resting in their life.
I can't believe it. I had a great night's sleep last night, and this is the worst. I woke up refreshed, and I'm just sick of it. Mondays, right?
Mondays, exactly. My coffee was hot and tasted great in the morning, and I couldn't believe it. Things were going well. But that's like, so we were talking earlier, Craig is just known for like a streak of bad luck. And what's that song? Like, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. That Craig could live that song out. And he's had a streak of good luck recently.
Very small streak.
But it's a streak. And I mean, this is something to celebrate. Like free coffee. What else?
Free breakfast.
Free breakfast.
Free entree at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Twice. Yeah, just because they made a mistake, and I didn't call them out on it. Just they took care of me.
But that's the Lord's chicken, and they have to do that. Like if you ask them to walk 1 mile, they have to go twain with you.
Correct.
And so
I watched that training video.
Yeah. I believe it. Yeah. Oh, that's good. But when we trust God with our finances, I believe we see fruitfulness there. And when we trust God with our work and our rest, we'll see that same fruitfulness, and it's going to come out in so many different ways. And guys, if this is something you struggle with like me, I'm just going to tell you, on the other side of being told you almost passed out in your house because you were exhausted and dehydrated, my life now is so much better. The word is balance that people use, but it's in such a better rhythm. I have rest throughout the week. I'm probably not where I want to be with taking like a whole day of rest, but I've definitely scheduled rest throughout my week to where I'm intentionally not doing anything. And so, and that's a conversation you need to have with your spouse and stuff too, because you're going to go from doing a bunch of stuff to not,
Right.
and having to take longer at getting at things. Now, I'm not the best at that anyway. I keep telling Sarah, I don't know why you've reminded me over the last 6 months. I'm going to get to it, right? Yeah. And so, what about you, Craig? You're like a handyman guy and kind of do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I enjoy being a handyman a little bit. Most of what I know, I've learned from YouTube. Had to watch several videos, but for me, it's a task that needs to be done, whether it's for my wife,
there we go,
or for me to upgrade my situation.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm happy to check it off.
That's good. It brings me to something. A lot of times we can put tasks on our task list that keep us busy, but are they really productive?
Yeah.
Are they actually doing something that produces results in our lives? And it's in those moments that we want to, or it's when we're doing those tasks, we have to ask those questions. Is this like producing anything in my life, or am I doing this just to appear busy? And when we're just trying to appear busy, we are not going to be able to, or we're appearing busy. We're just doing things to do things, right? We're just trying to tell ourselves, oh, I need to work. I need to be doing this. Well, do you really? So we want to choose to be productive and not just busy. I thought you were going to say something there.
Well, I will say something. You may have it in your notes, and I know you've mentioned it before. But there's, we're mind, body, and spirit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's 3 different rests that we need to partake in. One for our body, and the body one you really can't push through very much.
No.
It's your body's going to stop you. You have a limit there. The spiritual rests that we need to take, we could talk about, and just resting in God and waiting on Him and so forth. There's scripture for that. But the one I think that we're really focused on here, based at least on what we've talked about so far, is that mind, the mental rest, because that's where we really wear ourselves out, and we will push through mentally to a point of where we're basically poisoning ourselves, because we're good. Like a sponge. We've been filled so much, and we're trying to wring out every bit of water into somebody else or some other project or whatever. And now we're trying to come back to our family, and we look like a SpongeBob on that episode when he was stuck out in the sun and just withered up and just dry. And
Patrick, yeah. Oh, I saw that one. Oh man, yeah, no, that's perfect, man. I love that, because it truly is. We can't. I mean, from experience, you will hit a wall, and everybody has a different wall. Everybody has different capabilities and stuff. But this last point that I want us to talk on for a few minutes is that you are not the exception, and I think we all believe we are. In some way or another, we're the ones that can do more. We're the ones that can take care of it. We're the ones, as men, we are going to put the team on our back, and we are just going to handle all of our problems in this
Call of Duty.
Right? There you go. That's it. Yes. We will have to do. We're going to have to figure that out. We'll put a video out. We'll play Call of Duty one night. That'd be fun. And so, but you can't just put everything on your back and make it happen, guys. You are not the exception. You will break. And along the journey, you're going to break people around you. You're going to hurt your kids. You're going to hurt your wife, your relationships at work. You are going to really risk ruining the most important things that you have in your life. It was Douglas Adams. I'm going to read a quote to you here. He said this. He said, human beings who are almost unique in having the ability to learn from the experience of others are also, oh, wow, I can't read my handwriting. Well, that's embarrassing. Also remotable. I think that's the word. We'll have to look this quote up. I thought I could read this, guys. Sorry. We're not editing this out. I told you. We're real. We are imperfect action. That's what we do. For their apparent disinclination to do so. And what he's speaking about there is how you've heard the stories of pastors and of people in business. And I mean, the divorce rate's crazy right now. Why is all this happening? Why? I think one of the main problems, maybe not the problem, but one of the main problems that we have, guys, is we are pursuing after all this stuff. We're working hard. We're never stopping. And we're wondering why our relationships are falling apart. We're wondering why we're falling apart. We've got so many health issues that we're facing. I wonder if it's because we're just not resting the way we need to be. And you see all this happening, but you think, well, it's not going to happen to me. It will. And it can happen. It will happen to you at some point. If you, by choosing to rest and allow yourself to recharge, you are choosing to make yourself into a more, I don't want to say better person, but a more palatable. You are able to interact with others better. You're not stretched so thin. Your mind isn't wandering constantly. The choice to rest, just like the choice to deepen your relationship with your Savior, we talked about in episode 1, is really the foundation of everything that we are going to be talking about when it comes to the Men After God podcast. The choice to rest is on the other end of that book ending it, to say, listen, guys, deepen your relationship and then stop every now and then and smell the roses. Just rest. Your body, your mind, they need it. And you're going to either learn it by someone else's experience or you're going to learn it on your own. The last thing I'll say about this is it's got to be scheduled. Now, Craig, you like the task list. I know you don't do the time blocking thing. Do you create like a task to rest or to refresh yourself or anything?
No, I don't have a task to rest. I probably should schedule rest because lately I've not been doing that well.
I know a great coaching program for you, Greg.
But I have tried to make it a habit towards, when I notice that I'm becoming more irritable and when things are bothering me more, okay, it's time to just stop. It's time to stop focusing on stuff and take a break. And one way that I like to do that is just, I'll listen to a podcast that's about nothing. The Tim Hawkins podcast, they just talk about nothing or everything. And there's no point, there's no focus. You're not going to really glean anything. You just sit there and I can drive and I can kind of zone out, laugh a little with them, or even a television show. And I'm really just kind of tuning everything out and just sitting there and just nothing. And so I know when I become irritable, all right, but if I scheduled it, maybe I would just never get to that point.
And I was about to say that if you're someone that doesn't want to get to the place of that irritability, not that we don't all have that from time to time, but it can often help that you schedule your rest and make that part of a rhythm. This is why I use the word rhythm over balance. When we think of balance, we got the guy walking across the tightrope there, carrying the thing. He's constantly making corrections, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, we got to be evaluating how things are going and stuff. Sometimes schedules change. Like I know we're in sports season right now. Sports season is going to end for us in a couple of weeks, and we're about to have a lot more time available as a family. And we're going to make an adjustment. But instead of having to always think about making these constant corrections to stay in balance, I think about having a rhythm. So instead of having to make the constant corrections to walk across the tightrope for this period of time, I'm going to broaden the rope. I'm going to wear the right shoes. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make the rope walk easier for me and better for me as I go across it, which is, again, evaluation. For me, I do that about every 3 months and try to take time to redo my schedule and make sure that my 168, which we'll talk about in later episodes, is filled out and my schedule is done well on my Google Calendar, which is where I really exist. And I have my times for rest in there. I think, Craig, you finally saw my Google Calendar at one point and you noticed like I schedule like brushing my teeth and like all that stuff. It's all on there. It's all
overscheduled for me.
Yeah, I have all that in there. Like this is when I do this. This is when I do that. My Bible reading and prayer time. This is all this, and I mean everything's in there. And so that is something that for me, like I have to do that because then I see it that day and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to rest today. I'm going to do this today. Or there are times where I don't have it scheduled and I will see an open block. I'm like, you know what? I'm accomplishing a lot. I need to do this because I don't think that I do that much. But anytime I show my schedule to people or I like fill out an accountability report, which we haven't done in a couple of weeks, and I send it off, I get from like one of our deacons said it to me. He goes like, hey, so like, how was your rest? Like, I was like, man, I'm doing great. It's actually a lot better than it was. And this, he goes, based on your report, like you're getting a lot done. Like you're actually able to rest. Okay. All right. And so we'll end on this one. Let other people speak into your life when it comes to this matter, because we're our own worst critic. I don't think that I'm doing enough. I think that I've got to do more. But then there are other people who can look at you and say, dude, you do this, you do that, you do this. Why don't you take some time to yourself? Maybe you're that guy. Hey, if you're the guy that's on the other end of this though, and you're just lazy, okay, get to work, right? But honestly, most of you men that are going to be listening to this, you are men that are achieving. You're go-getters. You are leaders, and you are the ones struggling with, like I was, scheduling this. This is so important. Please, guys, please schedule this. All right, Craig. Last comments on doing nothing for Jesus.
Yeah, just real quick. You said go-getters, and my brain went to those of us that aren't the type A personalities, and we're the got-getters.
The what?
We get gotters.
You get gotters. You got get. Yeah. That's that Medea quote, right? You got to, I can't even do it. When she's talking to Dr. Phil. I don't even know what to say there. Yeah. When the character she is talking to Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I've seen it. I don't.
You
remember
have?
the quote,
Oh
yes.
man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to put that in the show notes. We'll clip that because that's hilarious. We got to get that. Awesome.
But yeah, so what I'll end on is the whole point of this is for us to follow after God, to be more like Christ. And if you look at Christ in the New Testament, he did so much. And even though he was 100% man, he was also 100% God. So he could do the supernatural as well. He could do the 40-day fast and those type things, heal people. But one thing that you find him doing often is resting.
Yeah.
And whether it was mind, body, or spirit, he was doing all three. Yeah. And that is something that we can look to him and not feel bad about taking a rest. We can know that, hey, we're being like our Savior because he understood we need that.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And that goes back to submitting what the Bible says, submit every thought, capture every thought, and submit them to the Lord. I'm going to look that verse up. But we take those thoughts of inadequacy or of whatever it is and submit it to God. And what we see with Jesus is he rested. I mean, that's a man that got a lot done. Son of God, preaching across Israel there, walked everywhere. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah.
I don't like walking like to my mailbox. But he rested. And so we've got to make the choice to do that. So in honor of rest for our paid subscribers, guys, we are actually not going to do a paid content section for this episode because my challenge to you is to go rest. Take the 20 to 25 minutes you would have listened to this podcast, because I know you're always listening, and just rest. Take a nap. Enjoy the time with your family or just with yourself resting, whatever it is. Go and rest. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Men After God podcast. We'll be connecting again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Men After God podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and keep up with the show by following us at facebook.com/menaftergod. You can also reach out to Dustin personally at dustin@seekconsulting.us with any questions or for coaching on being a man after God. Until next time.